UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Very good evening. I'm Darren McCaffrey. You're watching GB News Live. Coming up on the next hour, Nicola Sturgeon has ruled out an early end to current restrictions in Scotland, telling people to stay at home for Hogmanay. We'll have the latest from Scotland, but also from England, as the number of people in hospital tops 10,000, up 48% week on week, the highest since the 1st of March. We'll have the latest on the coronavirus crisis as we head into the new year. But first, the latest news at 6.
Good evening, I'm Polly Middlehurst with your news at 6 o'clock. Doctors have been advising the Prime Minister that 90% of people being treated in intensive care have not received their COVID booster jabs. Speaking at a vaccination centre, Boris Johnson said 2.4 million double jab people hadn't had their booster, and he's urging them to get them so they can enjoy the new year. The latest figures now show more than 800,000 boosters have been recorded across the UK during the 5-day Christmas period. Meanwhile, some pharmacies are reporting a huge problem with shortages of lateral flow tests, saying there were requests every 5 minutes over Christmas. The Association of Independent Multiple Pharmacies is warning of patchy supplies following a change in self-isolation rules for 10 to 7 days if someone tests negative. The UK Health Security Agency say almost 8 million test kits will be made available to pharmacies by New Year's Eve. And in Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon says she won't be introducing further coronavirus restrictions because hospital cases have remained broadly stable. The First Minister says she expects a steep increase in cases, however, over the coming weeks. Scots are also being urged not to travel to England for New Year's Eve, where clubs are still open.
And it's also why over Hogmanay and New Year's Day, and for at least the first week of January, we are advising everyone to stay at home more than normal, to reduce contacts with people outside our own households, and to limit the size of any indoor social gatherings that do take place so that they don't include people from any more than 3 households.
Meanwhile, over in France, 2 people are testing positive for COVID every single second. That's according to the country's health minister, Olivier Véran, who also said France had reported a record daily high of 208,000 new cases. That's up from 180,000 on Tuesday. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization's Director General, Tedros Ghebreyesus, says he's becoming increasingly concerned by the increasing global cases.
Delta and Omicron are twin threats that are driving up cases to record numbers. I'm highly concerned that Omicron, being more transmissible, circulating at the same time as Delta, is leading to a tsunami of cases.
Meanwhile, away from COVID, more than 100 cases of harassment and stalking have been reported in Parliament. That's since the start of last year. The figures come from the Met's Parliamentary Liaison and Investigation Team, which was set up following the murder of the MP Jo Cox. It recorded 117 cases between January last year and September this year. The social care system is not fit for purpose and is handing some children over to criminal gangs. That's according to a new report. The Commission on Young Lives says many teenagers are moved away from where they live and sometimes end up in areas with high levels of crime. The Department for Education says it's urgently reforming the system now to address the growing pressures. And in the United States, jurors in the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell have been told they must work on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day if they haven't reached a verdict. Minutes after arriving to begin their deliberations today, the judge confirmed the trial would continue through the holiday period. Maxwell is on trial in the United States, accused of luring young girls to be abused by Jeffrey Epstein, charges she denies. Russia and Belarus plan to hold joint military drills next year as tensions rise in the region. President Vladimir Putin has met with the Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko in St. Petersburg. Ukraine says Russia may be preparing for an invasion, something Moscow had denied. The Russians are demanding that NATO promises not to admit Ukraine, which borders both Russia and Belarus. You're up to date. I'm back in an hour. See you then.
A very good evening. Welcome to the programme. I hope you're satisfactorily full up with mince pies and cups of tea in between Christmas and the New Year. But let's move on to the big story that has, of course, dominated this festive period, and that is the continued coronavirus crisis. And on the day the NHS here in England confirmed there were more people in hospital with COVID since the 1st of March, figures over 10,000. The contrast is between how Holyrood and Westminster and the different governments are dealing with the Omicron wave. It couldn't be any starker in many regards. A total of 10,462 people were in hospital in England with COVID-19 as of 8 o'clock this morning. Now, that is up 48% from a week ago, but is still nowhere near the peak that we saw at the height of the second wave. Back in mid-January, there were more than 34,000 people in hospital with coronavirus. Meanwhile, in Scotland, there are also a record number of cases reported today, nearly 16,000, but their hospitalisations have remained largely stable. But restrictions in Scotland on hospitality and events are expected to remain in place until at least the 17th of January, and people have been urged to stay at home and not to celebrate Hogmanay in the way that they usually would. But how many people might be tempted to make that trip across the border and see in the New Year celebrations in pubs and clubs in England? Well, let's speak to Donald Macleod. He is the Managing Director of the Holdfast Entertainment Group and joins us now. A very good evening to you, Donald. First of all, just on this issue about the restrictions that have been in place for the last couple of weeks in Scotland, what impact have they had on your trade?
Well, first of all, my name's Donald Macleod, so the clan Macleod, and the impact, no problem, and the impact has been devastating on my trade and others. I mean, this goes back to early December when the Public Health Scotland went rogue and started scaring the bejesus out of everybody, telling everybody to stay in, and there was this new variant out there that was going to wipe out the rest of the planet, and people did stay away. So we've had our Christmas ruined, and it was a nightmare before Christmas, a nightmare during it, and now we've got the nightmare after it. We're talking a £5 billion industry here in hospitality. It employs 150,000 workers. Of course, it's not just about nightclubs. It's about live music venues, panto, theatres. It's about retail. It's about travel. It's about restaurants. It's about taxi drivers, hairdressers. We're all been devastated. And, you know, Scotland's retail streets have emptied. Yes, pubs are operating, but under severe restrictions again. And sadly, it looks as if an awful lot of Scots are heading across the border to celebrate Hogmanay, which is a worldwide Scottish tradition. The irony is, you know, is very clear here.
In saying that, there were 16,000 cases today in Scotland. I mean, Nicola Sturgeon still is clearly concerned. She said there is a note of optimism, but on the whole, these are going to be difficult times for the National Health Service. Do you understand the reason for caution?
Yes, and nobody understands it more than people like myself who have got staff to look after, customers to look after. I hate it when somebody says like wealth over health, that's all you're interested in. No, it's not. I've got run successful businesses, the Garage and the Cat House, two of the most successful clubs in the UK. And the reason they are successful is because we take the duty of care very, very seriously of our customers and our staff. And nobody wants to see anybody into hospital and dying. You know, we don't want that. But the problem is that there's got to be some proportionality here. When the virus is weak, as this one undoubtedly is, when it's not causing masses of people, pressure on the NHS and people dying, then we should be proportionate in our responses. And that's where I think England have got it right and not press the panic button unnecessarily. And the other thing in Scotland here, they talk about pressure on the NHS. Well, why don't they reduce the isolation period, as every other country seems to be doing, from 10 days down to 7, or in America down to 5? That would release an awful lot of staff back into the NHS. It would actually help ease the pressure. It seems we're getting an awful lot of things wrong in our panic here and not actually looking at the data, not just being steadfast and sure on it. We're just too quick to press the panic button.
And we should say, actually, in the last couple of minutes, the UK dashboard, daily dashboard, has been released into coronavirus figures. 183,037 positive cases reported today. Clearly a big step up from what we've seen before, and a record-breaking day. We'll bring you more details on that when we get it. Just back to the hospitality industry and the impact it's been having. Even here in England, without restrictions, people have been cancelling bookings. People are a bit more cautious about going out. Lots of people have caught it and so are isolating to a degree. And there is that impact on staff as well. So even if there weren't restrictions, there still would be a big impact on hospitality, in the simple fact that many staff wouldn't be able to turn up to work.
That is correct, but you have a choice. You're able to close or open. We don't. We've been told to close. And that is the difference. I don't believe. I think the people will vote with their feet one way or other, and they should be trusted more. And the bottom line is they should be trusted in their judgment as well. They know this is a mild variant. They've seen the data from South Africa. They've even seen the data from, the university, I think it was St Andrews or Edinburgh University from London, that show it's mild. That the majority, the vast, vast majority of people will not suffer any ill harm here. And we now have the drugs, we now have the treatment to protect the vulnerable, and that's where we should be focusing resources, not just close everything. Or, what they're doing in Wales, you get fined if you go into work, but it's okay to go to the pub. These are the sort of crazy, confusing rules that drive people bonkers and they start losing faith in the politicians and in sometimes the rules that are there to protect them. Sensible ones, but at the moment there's too many. It should have been a four-nation approach. We should have taken one way out of this and stuck with it, as a United Kingdom, but we haven't. We've got, I think, 4 different sets of rules for the 4 countries, which is just ridiculous.
And Donald, obviously it's not been great for your industry. They have received some financial help in the last couple of weeks, and we're at what should be the busiest period of the year, going into what is traditionally the quietest period of the year, which is, of course, January. What's your concerns about how many businesses might well survive this winter?
Well, you've just said we've been given financial support. No, we've been promised financial support. We were promised it before Christmas. We haven't received it. We still won't have received it next week or possibly the week after. And some of these funds will not get released well into the end of January, which, sadly, for many businesses, if you've just referenced it, it'll be too late. And not so much businesses like mine, which, the big machines and big costs, but hopefully we can stand up and be a bit resilient. But to the smaller businesses that don't have the cash flow, that cannot afford to be closed one day, let alone 3 weeks or longer. Because remember, we've been here before, 3 weeks became 16 months. And so I really feel for them because, your hairdressers, your small suppliers, your freelancers, your technicians, all the folk that make up the vibrant hospitality industry and retail, the shopkeepers. How are they going to stand up, with no money coming in the door at the worst possible time, and bills are going through the roof? And this is a time when most businesses try to make money to see them through what is a pretty bad quarter coming up, especially with big, huge VAT bills at the end of it.
Okay, Donald, appreciate your time. Stay safe, and hopefully you manage to have some type of new year that is at least fun in traditional in some sense. Donald Macleod there, who is the Managing Director of the Holdfast Entertainment Group, joining us from Scotland. Thank you, Donald. Just to bring you up to date with those figures, another record rise in the number of daily cases reported across the UK, 183,037 today. That includes that record-breaking number of 15,849 in Scotland, and also a record-breaking number in England as well, 138,287 cases. All in all, a record-breaking day, it seems, across most of the UK. It should come with a warning that those figures may well include a backlog from the Christmas period, but undoubtedly huge numbers involved in all of that. Talking about huge numbers as well, we've just got details through of the latest booster campaign, vaccinations across the UK yesterday, 325,087. That's across the whole of the UK. Nearly 1/3 booster vaccinations doled out yesterday. And this comes as the Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been out and about today trying to persuade people to get the booster jab. He still says it's the best way to avoid further restrictions in England. The Prime Minister said he cannot stress too much how important it is to get a booster jab against COVID-19 to be able to enjoy the new year sensibly and cautiously. He added there were 2.4 million eligible double jab people who are yet to take up the offer of a booster.
The Omicron variant continues to cause real problems. You're seeing cases rising in hospitals, but it is obviously milder than the Delta variant, and we're able to proceed in the way that we are. But that's one reason, and one reason only, why we're able to do that. And that's because such a huge proportion of the British public have come forward to get vaccinated, and particularly to get boosted. And we've done about 32.5, maybe more, million booster jabs now. And that is allowing us to go ahead with New Year in the cautious way that we are. But I cannot stress too much how vital it is for everybody to get that booster jab. I think that we've looked at the balance of the risks together. We generally concert our strategies together. We see the data showing that yes, the cases are rising, and yes, hospitalizations are rising, but what is making a huge difference is the level of booster resistance, the level of vaccine-induced resistance in the population. And what we need to do now is really finish off that work. I think everybody should enjoy New Year, but in a cautious and sensible way. Take a test, ventilation, think about others, but above all, get a booster. There you go,
Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, speaking a little bit earlier on today, urging people to get the booster vaccine. OK, we're going to pause there on GB News Live. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we'll be looking at a damning report into child welfare. But first, let's get the weather on this Wednesday.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there. Another mild day tomorrow. Still windy with some spells of rain, but some brighter breaks, particularly to the lee of higher ground towards the northeast. Low pressure firmly in charge. However, it's the wind direction which is determining how high the temperatures will be tomorrow. And we could see values coming in around 12 to 15 degrees Celsius, but it will be windy everywhere. And a breezy night tonight. Further spells of cloud and rain pushing up from the southwest. And this rain could turn heavy across the Midlands, Wales, northwest England. Further spells of rain for the north and the west of Scotland, particularly over the higher ground. We could see some high rainfall totals. All in all, it's a windy end to the night, a mild one. Also, we'll see further spells of rain. So a wet start to the day, particularly for England and Wales and Scotland. Rain clipping the far north of Northern Ireland just for a time. But notice an improvement coming in from the west as the rain clears towards the east. Still lingering on towards the more southern areas, outbreaks of rain continue and they will pep up as we head through the latter part of the day. Elsewhere, though, some brighter skies. Aberdeenshire down towards Northumberland, Derry as well as Antrim seeing some brighter weather to end the day. Now through Thursday evening and overnight, that rain, particularly across more western parts of the country, pushes ever northwards. The air remains mild wherever you are and further rain returns to Wales as well as the West Country later. Spits and spots further east through the latter part of the night. We hang on to some drier weather across the far north of Scotland. That's where the lowest temperatures will be overnight. But it will be a mild start to the last day of 2021. Yes, some rain first thing and some stronger winds, but notice the rain will wane as we head through the morning and into the afternoon. Still lingering on across northern counties of England, but certainly some brighter skies through the latter part of the day as temperatures struggle a little bit across the far north, 9 degrees Celsius here, but still mild further south. And a bright, breezy and mild start to 2022. Bye-bye.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.